Tracking down the creature that makes tracks like these meant our film crew had to travel the globe, and more than just once. This excursion on film is going to take us far up to the north and right down to the south of this planet of ours. So, make yourself comfortable, and off we go. But we'll start with a little trip first, up to the eastern German state of Saxony. We get to the construction site at 7 a.m. It's quite close to Weissenfels, and roughly the same distance from both Halle and Leipzig. This is where a section of the A38 is under construction. And there, in the middle of the site's hustle and bustle, are those tracks, and the WR2500. What's going on? Right where a section of hill has to be excavated is a type of soil that poses an unpleasant problem for construction engineers. The soil swells up unpredictably in moist conditions, constantly changing its volume. To counter that, the ground needs stabilizing with lime. And to improve ground conditions here, the WR2500 has been brought in for a job which, let's face it, it's destined to do. Why? Well, damp, uneven subsoil needs a super rough terrain vehicle, like the WR2500. Right where other vehicles get stuck is where the WR2500 starts its job. But this advantage is only one side of the coin. The other feature that's just as important is the milling and even mixing of the strewn lime layer with the soil. The machine leaves behind it a perfectly mixed granular surface, ready for construction. We don't need to go into the advantages of soil improvement and soil compacting in any detail here. Any experienced construction specialist knows all about it. An hour later, we meet up with our machine, quite a bit further on, near this road that intersects with the motorway. When the new enters, the old has to go, and here is no exception. A job uncompromisingly carried out by the Wirtgen 2100 DC milling machine. The bituminous pavement material is removed down to the foundation in a single operation. But let's take another look at the way the WR2500 that's working alongside it operates. The even planned section of road is strewn with lime in long passes by a special unimog. And following hard on the heels of the spreader is the WR2500, milling and mixing the soil thoroughly together with the lime. Just take a look at the ground it leaves in its wake. A tamping roller compacts the ground in layers. And this makes for an excellent stable and winter-proof base for the new motorway. Let's leave Saxony, pretty gloomy at this time of year, and take ourselves off to Italy. Landing in clear-skied Venice. There's a materials test for soil stabilizing processes taking place a couple of hours' drive from the city. The test initiators are the Italian State Rail Authority, currently in the preparatory phase of a major new rail track construction. And right at the Mondeno-Venice section of the line, we meet the Wirtgen machine and its famous tracks. The railway people had prepared a test area to check the homogeneity of the mixture. And the most important officials travel all the way from Rome to witness the event. Back to the WR2500. The task was to mix the distributed lime thoroughly with the subsoil with the aid of a caterpillar, thereby stabilizing the ground. The low-lying terrain posed no problems for our Wirtgen WR2500, which delivered a result that was almost pulverized in consistency. Although it was already obvious that the machine could deliver precisely the material desired, we did another pass. Findings of the day. The Wirtgen WR2500 is the most professional and advanced machine available today for this type of soil stabilizing. But that's only one aspect of this machine's abilities. Following the compass needle, we head up north to Norway. We're on the trail of that well-known WR2500 footprint at a construction project site a couple of hours' drive north of Oslo. Here, Nordest, the Norwegian construction company, has undertaken to recycle a rural road using the cold recycling method. It was pouring with rain when we arrived. And this is what the road looked like before the rain and before the start of construction. The badly damaged layers were analysed in the laboratory, which discovered a lack of mineral aggregate in the soil. This was distributed over the surface. And then came the cold recycling process with bitumen emulsion. That's another of this machine's specialities. The name gives it away. Wirtgen WR2500. What is it that makes this machine so ideally suited to tasks like this? Well, firstly, it's sheer rugged power, coupled with sensitive controls. Then there's the ingenious rotary milling and mixing technology. This mills even the hardest material and thickest layers cleanly, reducing it to the ideal granular size, and mixing it homogeneously with aggregate and emulsion. And finally, there's its advance rate. This is designed and electronically controlled to adjust automatically to the hardness of the ground material and milling depth, guaranteeing ideal performance with minimum wear of the machine itself at all times. Of course, this technology only works because our engineers have provided it with a variable mixing chamber. So, where milling is deep, there's more material and the mixing chamber is automatically enlarged. A shallower milling pass produces less material, so of course the milling chamber is reduced too. Or automatically, of course. Let's forget about technical details for a minute and go back to our Norwegian colleagues and their construction site. The granular material admixture with gravel and bitumen emulsion made an ideal new base course, able to withstand the icy winter temperatures and traffic for many years to come. Before the onset of winter, a wearing course will be laid over the cleanly profiled and well-insulated new base course. We've just discovered an interesting cold recycling contract taking place in Holland. So of course, we're going to show you that too. The first thing you see at Kastenweg, the construction site, is this sign. It goes straight to the point. This road is to be recycled using the cold recycling method. And this is how the Dutch construction experts do it. The damaged road is strewn with material identified by laboratory analysis as lacking materials and cement. The recycler mills through this material and the old surface layer deep into the base course. The milling process mixes all the materials together thoroughly. The milling depth? Here it's 35 centimeters, but the WR2500 can go right down to 50 centimeters. This kind of depth needs a lot of power, but then this rhinoceros of a machine has plenty of that. Its 12-cylinder Mercedes engine delivers a hefty 610 horsepower. The damping rollers can hardly keep pace. What next? Well, this recycling process is designed to create a first-class base course for roads. A base course that can deal with the difficult ground conditions in this country with its extremely high water table. Next day, we meet the construction crew at the same road, further along. This section had been recycled the day before, and the base course is already rock hard. A foundation like this is now absolutely ideal for further construction. Our Dutch friends told us that if the next construction stage follows promptly, it prevents the substructure from drying out prematurely. That's a pretty convincing argument. And the signpost? Well, that's already out of date. We're crossing the border now into Belgium. We wanted to give you a look, in passing, at recycling with the WR2500 of a large car park. Unfortunately, the machine was a little too quick for us again, and we found the recycler standing in front of this newly constructed building, the future home of an enormous furniture warehouse. A hydraulically bound base course was required between the block foundations of the steel framework. The base course is sand, so all they need to do is add the necessary gravel fraction. A caterpillar already on site grades the surface roughly. Once the cement has been distributed, the WR2500 gets to work. Although this machine's natural habitat is usually a building site under the open skies, there's always an exception to the rule. This is where the operator can reap the full benefit of this machine's extreme maneuverability and technical capabilities. The ground is mixed to exactly the required thickness. Water is distributed over this mixture of gravel and cement, and the WR2500 does another pass. It's done. The laser-controlled caterpillar smooths the base course to the desired profile, and then it's compacted. Later, a concrete floor will be laid over this solid layer. Moving on again, back to Holland and into the mountains, to Hilversum. Joking aside, this isn't only the site of the Bell Company's expert construction team, it's also one of Holland's few mountains. And there are plenty of recycler footprints here too. So, what's the order of the day? This is a local spa area, which needs a road building through it. The contract here is to cold recycle the road with the dust-free addition of cement and emulsion, with environmental caution as priority number one. A tough job. Why? Well, for one thing, the old surface that has to be recycled contains tar. And for another, there's granite aggregate from an earlier paved road scattered throughout the base course. The granulated tar material must be given a bituminous coating, and the stability of the pavement reinforcement has to be increased. All the material, new and existing, will form the base course for a new, durable road through the spa region. But one thing after another. Unlike what you've seen before, this contract calls for 3 vehicles working simultaneously. And the driving force of the team is literally the WR2500. It pushes the convoy of construction vehicles along in front of it. What does the convoy consist of? The front vehicle contains the bitumen emulsion. This self-propelled Wirtgen WR2500 suspension mixer contains cement and water, which are mixed to slurry in a microprocessor-controlled operation, and pumped, as is the emulsion, to the cold recycler. Dust-free, as we said. The emulsion is distributed inside the mixing chamber in precise doses by spray nozzles. Continuous electronic supervision and control of the entire configuration guarantee that laboratory parameters are scrupulously maintained. But that's enough detail. What actually goes on top of this perfectly prepared and later frost-resistant base course? First of all, rollers are sent over it. Then it's finely graded. Afterwards, so we're told, it's finely sprayed with bitumen, gravelled, and then finally the entire surface is covered with a 4.5 centimetre thick layer of asphalt. And the thing that makes our Dutch colleagues so happy is an overall saving of 45% on conventional methods. But we're back on the move again, on the next flight out. And it takes us 2,000 kilometers northwest to Moscow. As we leave the hurly-burly, we pass by the Danilov Monastery. This is where the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church administers his see. And then there's the construction site, bearing, we hope, the mighty footprints of the WR2500. Sure enough, there they are. And so is our machine. This is the M5 motorway, also known as the Ural. A 35-kilometer long section of it has to be recycled and brought in line with the demands of modern traffic volumes. After all, some 40,000 vehicles use this road every day. The company carrying out the contract is called Autobahn, a joint venture between Russian construction companies and Wirtgen International. The stability of the road shoulders needed considerable improvement, as planned widening will later require this to be a load-carrying lane. An ideal job for the WR2500, in fact. As you can see, there's the same configuration of machines here as we saw in Holland. Emulsion tank vehicle, the WM400 cement suspension mixer, and of course, the WR2500. Laboratory tests indicated that a working depth of 20 centimeters was what was needed. And this stable base course would be covered with 3 layers of asphalt over the entire width of the road. Judging by the action in the vehicle park and the enthusiasm of the workers, it's easy to imagine that the work will be finished well within the allotted time. And it's time for us yet again to take off for destinations new. The other end of the globe, in fact. South Africa, and a visit to 3 different construction sites. Only a couple of hours' drive from Durban on the east coast lies the town of Wartburg. If it weren't for the palm trees and local population, you might think we were in deepest, darkest Germany. The first German families settled here in the early 1800s, and there are 2 German churches, a German school, and, rumour has it, they even dream in German. This road, the N33, leads through sugarcane plantations and eucalyptus stands from New Hanover to Greytown. And there's a WR2500, hard at work here too. The contract here is to cold recycle a stretch of road several kilometres long. The notable feature of the job is that foamed bitumen is to be used here for the first time. We're witnessing the world premiere, you might say. But before we scrutinise the technology, a word about the road itself. Originally, it had a surface about 12 centimetres thick, with a 10 centimetre layer of crushed stone under that, covering the underlying base course. Repeated resurfacing and patching had left sections of surface 30 centimetres thick and more. The old surface was rock hard, and lengthwise cracks and other damage made it a perfect candidate for recycling. The construction workers said it was the hardest pavement they'd ever milled. This really tough surface needed milling to a depth of 28 centimetres. A word about the method. As an additional unit, the WR2500 was integrated with a combined injection system for foamed bitumen and water. How is the foam produced? Simple. The bitumen, heated to around 180 degrees centigrade, is sprayed with cold water in precisely measured quantities. This process causes the bitumen to foam profusely, increasing its volume 20-fold. And the injection of cold air effectively intensifies the process. With its viscosity sharply reduced, the foamed bitumen can now easily be sprayed by the 16 integrated spray nozzles and mixed into the granulated construction mixture, and all microprocessor controlled. The advantages are obvious. Just think about the cost saving per ton of additional emulsion. The bitumen price is often only a quarter of the cost of emulsion. And of course, visitors came not only from far-off Asia, but anyone who was anyone in the South African construction industry turned up at the construction site to marvel at the innovative process. Compacting was effected with 2 Bomag combination rollers and 2 rubber-tired rollers. The subsequent construction phases were completed to South African road construction standards, which we needn't go into here. And up we go again, to Mount Elias this time, an hour's drive away. This typical rural African road also needed fairly radical upgrading, using the foamed bitumen cold recycling method. The road, serving both farms and large residential areas, was in very poor shape. Severely eroded, it turned driving into an obstacle course. In the dry season, it threw up clouds of dust, and in the rainy season, the stretch was virtually impassable. But help is at hand in the form of the WR2500. The road surface has to be milled to a depth of 12 centimeters and thoroughly mixed with foamed bitumen. Obviously, the milled material is going to have a high dust content. Using foamed bitumen really pays off here, as its bonding properties of even the finest particles are invaluable. And as you can see, this first attempt at long-lasting bonding of uncombined material with foamed bitumen can definitely be described as successful. The road construction engineers in charge are pretty impressed, at any rate. The WR2500 is followed by graders and rollers, covering its footprints in the sand. Then the whole thing is sprayed with bitumen and strewn with sand. And that's all. We're convinced that the procedure followed here in Africa and other countries with similar road problems will blaze a triumphant trail in recycling methods. The recycler, cleaned on the spot with on-board equipment, is loaded for the next job and battened down for its journey. And off they go. Let's accompany the WR2500 on its nocturnal trip. 600 kilometers away, in the Itala Game Park, there's another road that needs recycling, using the same procedure. This game park is an enormous estate with differences in elevation of up to 1,000 meters. The driver of the hired flatbed trailer felt it was too dangerous to negotiate the steep serpentine bends down to the valley floor with 31 tons of machinery loaded on his trailer. No problem. The WR2500 gets out and does it on foot, much to the amazement of the game park assistants. The welcoming committee, in Wirtgen's honor, consisted of 3 rather splendid rhino. These animals seemed very like our machine somehow. The horn, maybe? The drive to the site wasn't quite as uneventful as we thought. 3 lady giraffes had absolutely no intention of letting us pass. Oh well. Eventually, we were able to start work on our environmentally friendly road recycling project. The method used here is identical to that of the previous site, just the conditions are a little different. Climbing ability, maneuverability, and versatility are what's needed here. Precisely the attributes, in fact, that make the WR2500 the unique, universal creature it is. All-wheel drive gives it excellent traction. The steerable front and rear wheels make this heavy machine highly maneuverable. Exactly what you need for this kind of terrain. All these features, and good operator visibility too, the cabin can be hydraulically displaced to the left or right, whichever is required. As temperatures in this area can reach the 40s, this fully air-conditioned cabin is not only a perfect working environment, it's just downright pleasant to be in. And what does this type of road recycling mean for game park administrators? The most important issue is the speed and the relatively low costs involved. Added to that, no mineral aggregate or other construction materials have to be transported to the construction site, over terrain that's almost impassable for construction vehicles. And finally, after the torrential rains that thunder down here in the rainy season, the road won't be washed away anymore, leaving swathes of the park unnavigable, as was the case before. The Wirtgen foamed bitumen recycling process is ideally suited to the colder zones on this Earth too, of course. And to close off, we'd like to demonstrate this. We're flying north again, over Oslo and Lillehammer this time, to our next construction site. Our target is right up in the Norwegian mountains, near the little town of Dombås. This busy stretch of trunk road is being recycled using the foamed bitumen method. Despite it being nominally summer, it's bitterly cold here, and during the night, the mountaintops received a sprinkling of snow. The laboratory boffins at Wirtgen established that the old pavement was lacking in various mineral aggregates. Before the WR2500 started up, the right aggregate was distributed over the area to be recycled. And cold recycling began. The work is being carried out under great time pressure, as it all has to be completed before the onset of the early Norwegian winter. Completed, what does that mean here? As we've seen on other construction sites, the foamed bitumen base course applied here and already levelled by the WR2500 is compacted and finely graded. To conquer climatic conditions and meet the heavy traffic demands, 2 layers are applied on top. You can see from our little film excursion that the world of the WR2500 is varied, colourful and interesting. This machine sets new standards in soil stabilizing and cold recycling. In the WR2500, Wirtgen has given construction experts around the world a machine that's equal to the widest possible spectrum of tasks, accomplished in the most superior style. So, in future, keep an eye out for the footprints in the sand, or in the crushed stone layer, or any other base course for that matter. And thank you for tracking it down with us today.